talk a lot about how we don't learn things just for ourselves. We don't learn things just so that we have that knowledge and it's ours to have. But that knowledge is always in service of making your community, our society, a better place. Okay, so let's try and capture that as well. So the purpose of today's class is for you to think about the variety of ways that your contemporary problem manifests itself or shows itself or impacts people in their lives. Today's lesson is embedded in a unit called the Future. That unit is really the culmination of a lot of things that we've been working on this year. From small group discussion skills and problem analysis skills, and more recently we did 3 case studies about social justice movements in the 60s and 70s and how they work to make change.
What do you guys think the root causes are?
Today, students will be working in small groups to try and summarize and synthesize some research they've been doing about a contemporary issue that they're concerned about, and then begin a conversation about how and where they might be able to make change.
It kind of forces the choice to choose the unhealthy food.
I think allowing students to make those choices really engages them the most and really brings in their families and their communities and allows them to share components of themselves that they don't usually get to bring into school environments. Today's lesson started with some individual thinking where students were processing some research that they've been doing over the last week. And they did that through a tree analogy. Imagine this tree as sort of an analogy of your problem. So the trunk of the tree symbolizes the contemporary problem they've been researching. The leaves are a representation of the variety of ways the problem is manifested in society. And then the roots are about the root causes and what's driving it. If I was in a group on the United Farm Workers and the contemporary problem we identified was bad treatment of workers, I might say like missing wages would be an example of this. And I would go on and on and on looking at my contemporary research notes and using that to think about, okay, what did I learn? What are examples, statistics, ways in which this problem grows out into society? I want everybody to start individually, go through your own notes, and try and get at least 1 bullet point for the trees and 1 bullet point for the roots. What are examples of police brutality?
Oh.
What are ways that that gets manifested in society? How do we actually see it in society?
I was about to give a name, like one of the victims said, like.
Yeah, you could. That's absolutely.
Michael Brown.
Mm-hmm. Right. So write Michael Brown.
All right.
I don't feel like it works like a tree. Like it's kind of just like.
So think about it like a cause and effect chain. What are some of the effects of obesity?
Like what it's like.
What negative things does it do? Like why?
Well, because there's not healthy food that it's like affordable, it leads to obesity. I kind of feel like obesity is like the end point. All these things are like, there's a lot of things perpetuating it. Like I don't really feel like it works like this. Can I do it on the back?
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Is it okay if a root is also like a leaf because it kind of generates more?
Sadia just brought up a really great point that I want to share with everybody as you're thinking about this. You could have something be both a root and a leaf. So they did some individual brainstorming, and then they shared out in their small groups and put their thinking together to create a group poster. Don't worry about this is not an art project. Just draw a rough outline of the tree.
Don't make it look like this though.
Right, yes, better than that one, but don't worry about it being quote-unquote perfect. Okay.
I think it's both. Yeah, fair enough.
Be also thinking about the discussion strategies that we've been practicing all throughout the year. So starting an idea, adding on, disagreeing, asking questions, and citing for evidence. But I do need at least 1 person in the group jotting down the context of your discussion.
Blaming the victim is like, I would say both too. Yeah.
The farm bill could be a root cause.
I said black targets and racial bias.
Yeah. The vocab word. The one where it's hegemonic narrative. Yeah.
Less trust. We don't trust you because you're black. Right.
Yeah.
Said, I see something very interesting on your notes that's not on the group diagram yet. So what's this about?
This is 95% of cases in court. Please don't get charged.
So I really wanted students to be able to identify and understand the variety of ways that a problem manifests itself in society, and to be able to pinpoint what are the specific causes and what are the effects. And if they can do that carefully and thoughtfully, I think they'll have a more powerful and more intentional action step. So you initially said root cause. Why do you think it's a root cause?
Okay, when like the police know they're not gonna get charged, so they're gonna keep doing it, and yeah.
Okay. And Trey, you were pointing up here. Why do you also think it's a manifestation? I think my role in the civic engagement work as a whole is really just opening the door and sort of setting a frame, creating a space for them to have the conversation and to apply everything that they have been researching and everything that they know. So what other problems are kind of feeding this that make a law like this necessary in the first place?
No allies, no acceptance, no open mind, bullying, no education on the LGBT community.
There we go.
There's a lot of pressure for Asians to do well.
Like, there's pressure in school, like, by teachers. Okay, so,
that can sum up like all the pressure ones.
Pressure to succeed.
Yeah, pressure from community to succeed.
Yeah.
I think success could look like consensus and agreement of everybody sharing, being like, yeah, I found that too in my research.
So there's so many things like that like lead to obesity.
And it could also look like disagreement.
You need to remember it's not just obesity, it's general people being unhealthy.
And I think them sort of sorting through and hashing through those ideas and seeing the complexity of thought on their trees. I think their trees were a little messy by the end, and I think that is success.
That is what we should strive for at our
Health
school.
education.
So the group focusing on food access, I think, had a very spirited conversation, and I think that their problem is really starting to unravel. And so trying to figure out where to best take action on that, I think, is a big challenge.
Like, we can try to do what we can.
So when you're saying education, are you talking about educating the people providing the food or educating the students? Because I don't think that
I think
students...
both.
Educating the students.
I think both.
But I don't think that students, regardless of whether or not they know that this is the wrong choice, that it's not actually that much of a choice.
No, but it becomes a choice when you become knowledgeable and they have access.
If there's access.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if we educate them and we're setting it up to like provide them, then I think that they will make a difference.
We should put like cameras on the cops, like
Cameras on their vest.
Right.
And
That's
then
effective, because
yeah,
anytime you can just cover it up.
No.
No, like it's a part of their
If it gets
job. They
covered
have
up.
to. I mean, it would just lead in a higher percent of less killings.
By the end of class, they had started thinking about where and how might we start trimming this tree. And so the metaphor there is like, where can we start addressing this problem? Maybe we can't tackle the whole problem, but there's a smaller part that we can work towards changing. Where and how might we start cutting this tree? The how question is one of tactics.
We can first start by going and talking to our mayor.
Right, you gotta start at your neighborhood.
Petition. I think it's a good idea.
So the next steps are continuing to think more specifically about where they can take action in terms of the tree and what tactic they might use. And then they'll finalize that into a proposal, which they'll then share out with the class. They'll revise their action plan and then work towards implementation. What kind of tactics do you guys think you could implement in order to, say, get the cops to carry cameras and recording equipment?
I feel like a petition would work best to see like what the community thinks.
And you, Tony, I think we're also suggesting something different of like gaining allies, of reaching out to existing organizations like Black Lives Matter, and we know that they have an Oakland connection. That's also an action step.
I think what first you should do is you should inform them about it.
So this lesson and the civic engagement work in general, to me, really gets at the core of what is the purpose of school. I think the purpose of school is to help students learn how to understand themselves better, understand their communities, and be able to work in groups to make positive change in their society.